Questions from the press about direct energy and microwave weapons made them visibly uncomfortable.
Mr. Secretary, can I ask you a question about some of the technology that you're developing to fight the war on terror, specifically directed energy and high-powered microwave technology? When do you envision that you can weaponize that type of technology?
Goodness. It is in, for the most part, the kinds of things you're talking about are in varying early stages. Do you have anything you would add?
I don't think I would add much. I think they are in early stages and probably not ready for employment at this point.
In the normal order of things, when you invest in research and development and begin a developmental project, you don't have any intention or expectations that one would use it. On the other hand, the real world intervenes from time to time, and you reach in there and take something out that is still in a developmental stage, and you might use it. So your question's not answerable. It depends on what happens in the future and how well things move along the track, and whether or not someone feels it's appropriate to reach into a development stage and see if something might be useful, as was the case with the unmanned aerial vehicles.
But you sound like you're willing to experiment with it.
I think that's the point, and I think, we have, I think, from the beginning of this conflict, I think General Franks has been very open to looking at new things if there are new things available, and has been willing to put them into the fight even before they've been fully wrung out. And I think that's not referring to these two particular cases of directed energy or high-powered microwave, but sure. And
yes.
We will continue.
For thousands of years, the way in which you've killed someone is you have hit them with a sword, a spear, an arrow, a bullet, a bomb. It's kinetic. You're killing them by hitting them. And now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you have a completely new physical principle being applied in killing people, in which they don't know that they're being killed because their skin and body is being heated by high-power microwaves, or they are being shot at by a laser, which would have an instantaneous effect.
We can see the effects of a gun very easily and understand them. But when you cannot see the effects of a weapon because it is not visible and because the science is not very well understood because it's so new, then it becomes of grave concern to us and raises the stakes for potential human rights violations and abuses. Pain is induced upon the people. And that's what we have to understand about the active denial system, that it exists to create pain. And that's very different than most other non-lethal weapons, where the desire is to either immobilize someone or make it so that they cannot walk in an area. And we have to be very careful, because in international law it's very clear that devices created solely for the creation of pain can eventually lead to torture and are therefore illegal.
People might think that energy weapons only pose a danger for the countries involved in a military conflict, but that's not the case. One particular weapon, called the active denial system, better known as the pain ray, has been built specifically for use in maintaining public order. Given its claim to be non-lethal and the suffering it produces, this weapon could become a very controversial one.
The active denial system is a millimeter wave system, operates about 93 gigahertz, sends out a beam for a very long distance. And what's important about it is that when it hits the skin, it penetrates only a very slight, a few millimeters into the skin. And it hits the pain receptors and causes, people to be averse to the pain. It hurts a lot.
How long can he...
The tests that have been run, they were to go to 3 seconds. Each individual was given a kill switch. Nobody made 3 seconds. The onset of pain is extremely rapid, and you don't have to do it very long. I mean, it gets your attention.
My name is Dr. John Hall. I'm a medical doctor from Texas. I'm an anesthesiologist and chronic pain management physician. I'm a diplomat of the American Board of Anesthesiology, a member of the American Society of Pain Medicine, and also a member of the Mind Science Foundation. I recently spoke at the Presidential Commission for Bioethics. As you know, President Obama sent a memorandum to Amy Gutmann, the chairman of the Bioethics Commission, regarding two things. After the apology that was offered to the people of Guatemala for performing a Tuskegee syphilis-type study on their people, President Obama has charged the Commission with answering two questions. Is current legislation adequate in protecting the public from non-consensual, unethical experimentation? And is any such experimentation still ongoing in this country or abroad? On March 1st, I testified to the Commission to both of those questions. With regard to current legislation, the Federal Code of Regulations regarding human subjects testing is also known as the Common Rule. The Common Rule has several flaws, mostly that have to do with informed consent. If you look back at our country's history on doing experimentation on people without informed consent, such as experimentation at Willowbrook, multiple radiation experiments, the Tuskegee syphilis study, MK-Ultra, MK-Search, and others, the biggest problem with that experimentation was that there was no informed consent. My testimony to the Commission was that the Common Rule is inadequate in protecting us from experimentation due to the loopholes within it that allow agencies to circumvent informed consent of the subjects. Specifically, item 46.116D, items 1 through 4 in that document give 4 different ways that informed consent can be circumvented. One being if the investigating agency feels like no undue harm will come to the subject. One, if they feel that the experimentation will not affect the general welfare of the subject. And most notably, one that states that informed consent may be done after the fact, after experimentation has been done. As you know, with many of these horrendous experiments from our past post-World War II history, that's exactly what has happened. The same as Tuskegee, as with Guatemala, the experimentation was done, but then 40 to 60 years later an apology is offered, often to survivors of the original subjects when many of them have passed away. With regard to ongoing experimentation, as a physician and other physicians in the medical community have been fielding complaints from multiple people complaining of being experimented on with electromagnetic technologies, specifically electromagnetic technology that's meant to alter cognition, alter behavior. I personally have heard from approximately 2,000 victims, all voicing identical complaints. These complaints range from burning of the eyes, burning of the skin, rapid heart rate, severe heartburn or reflux disease, electrical disturbances in their homes, along with a form of stalking called organized stalking, referring to these people being stalked by groups of people unknown to them and for no usual criminal reason or law enforcement reason that you see stalking. I presented a packet of data reflecting this to the Commission, as well as did Dr. Terry Robertson, also had me hand carry a packet of data that he presented to the Commission as well. With regard to this type of experimentation, it appears to be being accomplished by covert groups. In San Antonio, Texas, several victims have identified one such group here as a private investigative agency owned by a former FBI agent and his son, a former lieutenant colonel with the DOD. These people were identified through their stalking attempts, and it's assumed that they are accessing electromagnetic technology that's meant to intrude upon the privacy of the individuals that they're stalking. At the Commission, there were also probably 20 victims that all stood up speaking at the Commission, voicing identical complaints. As I told the Commission, in the medical community, we are the ones fielding these complaints. If it were only a handful of people nationwide this could be easily written off to other factors. However, each state has multiple victims coming forward voicing identical complaints, which lends itself more to experimentation rather than mental illness or any other cause.
Today is March 7th, 2011, and we're here with Dr. Warren. He has several degrees, and he is the director of the Bioethics Center at Tuskegee University. First of all, could you tell us the full name and the intention of the Tuskegee University Bioethics Center?
Yes. The full name for the Bioethics Center is the Tuskegee University National, and I emphasize National Bioethics Center in Research and Healthcare.
And are there other parts of the center or programs within the center throughout the U.S.?
Not connected with Tuskegee University, but there are other bioethics centers that have been ongoing for several years, and most recently funded by the National Institutes of Health.
Okay, and if I remember correctly, I understand that this particular center was partly developed in response to the presidential apology to the people that were targeted by the Tuskegee syphilis experiment?
Yes, this center was actually mandated by President Clinton in 1997 as a part of a presidential apology for the U.S. Public Health Service syphilis study at Tuskegee. And he mandated this center as well as the museum to continue the legacy that occurred and to prevent such atrocities from occurring again.
Can you tell us if there's any survivors of this experiment?
At this time, all the survivors, all the men, have passed.
I understand, if I remember this correctly, were there also people that were infected as a result of the direct experimentees being infected, their partners?
That we don't know. There's some evidence, but to speak to that specifically, I would rather not.
Okay.
We directed our attention to the men and their families.
Okay. Did they all die as a result of the experiment?
We don't know for sure. Some of them passed from other causes, and so again,
I was just handed a note that we missed this, I guess. Apparently, in the Senate, a page disrupted the throne speech. It used to be a page.
I did. Used to be a page. That is.
She tried to hold up a stop.
I don't know what happened, but that naughty page. I don't
tried
know.
to hold up a sign reading "Stop Harper," and she was removed.
Really?
And is that her name? Her name was Bridget Marcel. Interesting. I've never heard of that before. Have you?
Never. No, that
you go
is,
through a vetting process.
You do, and there's some very, very strict rules and nonpartisanship and whatnot, and that I would imagine that. Now, I wasn't in the Senate as a page; I was in the House of Commons, but it's similar rules. But I would imagine that there will be some serious consequences for that.
I want to hear firsthand, because if anyone knows about this, it's Robert Fife, our CTV bureau chief down there at the Senate. Bob, what exactly happened here?
Well, the 21-year-old graduate of the University of Toronto, Bridget Marcel, who has worked in the Senate on Parliament Hill for over a year. She was in the Senate chamber doing her job as a page and held up a "Stop Harper" sign. The shocked looks of everybody, and she was immediately hauled out of the Senate chamber. We're now trying to track her down. But she says she's tried to work within the confines of Parliament, but now she's calling for what she said is an Arab Spring here in Canada. I guess she figures that Mr. Harper is a kind of an Egyptian Hosni Mubarak or something like that. In any case, she's saying that Harper's agenda is disastrous for the country and for my generation. She says we have to stop him from wasting billions on fighter jets, military bases, and corporate taxes while cutting social programs and destroying the climate. Most people in this country know what we need are green jobs, better Medicare, and a healthy environment for future generations. So I'm not sure whether this young woman is a New Democrat or a Liberal, but given the fact that the Liberals have a lot of control here in the upper chamber, I'm assuming she was hired by the Liberals.